I changed my pick for this game every day this week. I'd be surprised, very surprised, would not be shocked if Virginia won this game. He acted like he was playing Georgia or Alabama or Ohio State. Georgia is 1-9 in the past 10 versus Alabama. We thought it was a saving thing, but Alabama won last year. This, I think, is going to be the best week of football potentially all year. So I think this is kind of the equivalent of what last year's week 7 was, but now we're going to get it in week 5. And welcome to the Hot Seat of College Football Show. I am Trent, your host. Thank you so much for watching today's episode as we are 24 hours before kickoff for week 5 of the college football season. We have some incredible matchups tomorrow, obviously, with Oregon, Penn State, Alabama, Georgia, LSU, Ole Miss, Ohio State, Washington, even Indiana, Iowa. So there are tons of games tomorrow to look forward to. Thank you for watching. Today is obviously Last Minute Locks. If you have not watched yesterday's video, I highly recommend you do. It covers my top 10 offenses so far throughout the season, throughout week 4. I highly recommend go watching it. I think it's one of the best videos I have made so far on this channel. So if you are interested in maybe seeing where your team's ranked, that video is going to be pinned right up here right now. So you'll see that right now. So obviously this is Last Minute Locks. So we're obviously going over our top 10 predictions / bets. We're not putting any money on, but it's a good buzzword to put on my videos. So our predictions and bets for the season. So let's just jump over to our spreadsheet that you all know if you guys have been watching. Here we go. So here so far, we are 27-44 at 61%. Last week, we had our best week yet, going 8-2. Our only mishaps were... I think it was, actually, let me see what it was. I remember one of them was the Baylor-Oklahoma State game, or Arizona State, and then we missed on Illinois, Indiana. Actually, if I pull it up right here, you see this was the two we lost to Illinois, Indiana, and Baylor, Arizona State. So, we will get into our bets after this, but before I want to start, let me jump back here. Obviously, we got the flag back up. It keeps falling over. I'm going to have to buy better hooks for it. But tomorrow is a packed day of football. This, I think, is going to be the best week of football potentially all year. Obviously, we'll see how the playoffs are and maybe conference championships. But for right now, this is very reminiscent of last week's. I think it was week 7. It was the week where you had LSU, Ole Miss, Ohio State, Oregon. You had Texas, Oklahoma State. You had Penn State, USC, which was that crazy overtime game. So I think this is kind of the equivalent of what last year's week 7 was, but now we're gonna get it in week 5, so a little bit earlier. We'll see kind of what these teams are earlier in the season. Obviously, we still got a long season. We got a long way to go. This won't define playoffs operations, but we're getting a little bit closer. So we are going to talk about some of these games tonight on Friday, which I'm not predicting any of them except for, actually, no, I am. So let's start off with, this is the one I'm not going to cover, but tonight in about, for me, 40 minutes is Florida State, who's a top 10 team now. Can you believe that? On the road at Virginia. Florida State is favored by 6.5, a little under a touchdown. The total is 60.5. I think, just going over this game quickly, I think Florida State's going to win this game. This is a trap game. I would not be shocked. I'd be surprised, very surprised, would not be shocked if Virginia won this game. So, let's start off with a game later tonight at 9 p.m., TCU at Arizona State. And actually, this was one of the games that was hardest for me to pick. It was this and Texas A&M versus Auburn, which we'll get into in a little bit. So, this game, it's at Arizona State, and Arizona State is favored by now 2.5. And actually, I'm looking at these spreads today. The spreads have been all over the place today. This week, it's been very, consistent, but for some reason, today, it's been very, how do I describe it? It's been fluctuating a lot. So, Arizona State was 3.5, down to 2.5. So the spread's going in favor of TCU, and that's exactly where I think this game's going to go. I think TCU is going to end up winning this game. I think Cam Scatterboot was too much of a large piece of this offense. I think that without him, they're relying more on Sam Leavitt, which is still a young quarterback. Jordan Tyson obviously is phenomenal, but I think defense wins games, wins championships, and I don't believe in Arizona State's defense at all. So I'm going to pick TCU. Their defense has been better. And this is kind of what we've seen from Sonny Dykes at TCU is it's like every now and then they have a super up year, go to the national title, and then the super down year, they go 6-6, So I think this is one of the up years for TCU. Josh Hoover's already has 1,000 passing yards with 11 touchdowns to 2 interceptions. I think he's the better quarterback. I think he's the more veteran quarterback. So I'm going to go with TCU, who's actually the ranked team, ranked 24th in the country. They're undefeated, over Arizona State for their first game in Big 12 play. So let me go to our next game. This will be the noon slot for Big Noon Kickoff. This is USC versus Illinois. For some reason, Illinois is still ranked in this game. I literally have no idea why Illinois is ranked in this game, but they are. So it's 21 versus 23. USC is on the road. Lincoln Riley and USC have struggled on the road before, especially last year. We look at one-possession games. I'm looking at Minnesota on the road, Maryland on the road. So this will be a test for USC and Lincoln Riley in this offense, but I do think Jayden Maiava is a better quarterback than not only Miller Moss last year, but Luke Altmaier. I think this game is going to be as bad as Illinois looked last week? Hell no. I think Indiana is really good, and I think Illinois played really bad on the road. So I'm going to predict this game kind of being like a 27-20, 30-23 game. I think it's going to be a good game. And I think Illinois will have a chance to win this game, but I just think that combination of Jayden Maiava and Jacoby Lane, I think it's just what a duo from those two. So I am going to go with USC. I would have USC going 5-0. I will say this was a game where I considered picking Illinois, but just from what I've seen last week and what I think USC is, I was high on USC and I was super high on Washington on the preseason. So I'm going to go with USC in this game over Illinois, and that will bring us to our next noon slot game, Notre Dame on the road at Arkansas. And when I did my preseason picks, when I just predicted the entire season for all like the top 25, when I did Notre Dame's schedule, I had them going 11-1 with a loss to Arkansas. Just because we saw last year, because last year, remember, they beat A&M, then lose to Northern Illinois. So I had Notre Dame beating Miami and beating Texas A&M and then losing on the road at Arkansas. Obviously, they lost to Miami and Miami and Texas A&M. So they beat Purdue. They allowed 30 points. I am expecting a shootout from this game. This is a thing where, so both of these teams' defenses are pretty bad. Arkansas is coming off of the loss to Memphis. Notre Dame is coming off the losses and then the win, but not very convincing win. I mean, they won by 26, but you allowed up 30 to Purdue. So I think this is kind of what's going to define the season for both of these teams. If Notre Dame loses, they're out of playoff contention. Arkansas is already out of playoff contention. Sure, if they win out, but they're not going to win out. I am going to pick Notre Dame. Taylon Green is statistically a better passer and runner in this game. Taylon Green is the leading rusher for Arkansas, and the threat of him on the ground is very reflective of Marcel Reed. Luckily for Notre Dame, they just played Marcel Reed, so hopefully they have an idea of maybe how to game plan against this. I think this game is going to be something like 38-24, 38-27 type thing. So I do think Notre Dame covers the 3.5. And I'm going to take the over for this game at 63.5. If I'm placing money. If you're betting money, that's what I would hypothetically pick. So that brings us to a 3:30 game. This one, actually, this is one of the most, in this and the next game at 3:30. 3:30 is maybe the most interesting time slot, and we have Oregon, Penn State, Alabama, Georgia. Because look, I'm looking at the 3:30 slot, and we have Ohio State versus Washington. A lot of people are picking Washington. LSU versus Ole Miss. Ole Miss is favored to win this game. And then Auburn, Texas A&M, where I'll get to that one after. So let's go back to LSU, Ole Miss. So Ole Miss is favored by 1.5. And this is because I think I feel like Ole Miss is getting overvalued with their wins over who they've played so far. Here, let me see who they have so far played. So Ole Miss's schedule, they beat the snot out of Tulane, who I think is pretty good, but still group of 5. Had a shootout versus Arkansas. Had a tightish game versus Kentucky, and then obviously destroyed Georgia. Was that Georgia State or Georgia State? So this game last year was really good. This was a game in Death Valley where it went to overtime. LSU ended up winning with a touchdown pass to Kyron Lacey. R.I.P. So Ole Miss is favored. Nussmeier might be injured, but Ole Miss is on their backup quarterback. And I'm looking at all these things. I'm like, look at all these storylines. LSU struggling on offense, and and this, and the past battles between these two, and how this game ended last year. And none of that even comes close to the biggest storyline of this game. And the biggest storyline of this game is that Lane Kiffin's daughter, I think her name Laundry something. His daughter is dating Whit Weeks, who is one of the Weeks brothers on LSU's defense. Whit Weeks is a veteran linebacker on this team. He may or might be a captain. I don't really know. If you've watched the SEC documentary, you've known probably a lot about Whit Weeks. They go really in depth with Whit Weeks and Garrett Nussmeier's relationship together. So if you watch that, you probably know maybe more who Whit Weeks better is than if you're not an LSU fan. It's not even that. It's that they hard soft launch, whatever you want to call it, their relationship. The week of this game, this came out like 4 days ago. So in the past 4 days, Lane Kiffin's daughter thought it was a good idea to soft launch their relationship with the opposing team's linebacker. And then the best part of this entire thing is Lane Kiffin on Twitter. If you know Lane Kiffin, he loves Twitter. He tweets out, "Take the over." And it's just like, oh my God. Hopefully this game lives up to what it is. Ole Miss is favored by 1.5. This is a game where I thought about that storyline, and I'm like, you know what, I have to pick Ole Miss. I have to. But I was just thinking, like, man, like, without that storyline, I'm just like, I gotta pick LSU to win this game. I am gonna pick LSU to win this game. Obviously, they're gonna cover since they're underdogs. I'm not very confident in my pick. I just think with that, even if LSU can't score a lot, with that defense for LSU versus Chandelis, an FCS transfer, he's never seen a defense like this. And, I mean, Arkansas put up 35 points on this defense. I think LSU can put up just as many. And I don't think they're going to allow 35-plus points. So I am going to pick LSU to win this game. Probably something like a 27-24-ish type game. So I am going to go with the Tigers to advance to 5-0. And that will bring us to our another 3:30 game. Indiana on the road at Iowa. I'm going to go quickly over this game. Indiana's favored by 8.5. I'm not worried about Indiana losing. Kirk Ferentz in his press conference interview, if you've seen his interview talking about this game I think it was on Tuesday, he acted like he was playing Georgia or Alabama or Ohio State. He was like, well, they have 2 NFL receivers. No one can stop them. And it's like, you're not playing Ohio. You're playing Indiana. And I know Indiana's good, but they're not Ohio State or Alabama, Georgia good. So it seems like I was already given up. It almost seems like the second Kirk Ferentz hit the the all-time Big Ten winning records. He passed Woody Hayes, I think, a week or two ago. So he's the all-time most winning, not winningest, but has the most wins for Big Ten coach ever. So he might have just given up the second that happened. So I'm going to go with Indiana to cover this game. They had a good performance against Rutgers last week. Iowa did. They put up like 38 points in like a shootout, which was surprising. But I will take Indiana to. Do I want them to cover? I don't know, but I am going to pick Indiana to win. So that takes us to our last 3:30 game of the. Well, actually, no. There's one more. So there's Ohio State plays at 3:30. I'm going to get to my Ohio State Washington preview at the end of the video. So before I even get to that, so Auburn at Texas A&M. So Auburn is, or actually A&M's a 7.5 point favorite. And this was a game where I think I changed my pick for this game every day this week, or like half of the days. Everyone's picking A&M, and I was just thinking about it. I'm like, man, I think Auburn's going to win this game. And you do more research, and you're like, well, they've lost like 14 straight like road games against ranked SEC teams. A&M has had a great SEC opener. They're like 7-1 in their past 8 SEC openers. So and also A&M. So with A&M's defensive line, they have not been able to stop a lot. And I'm looking at this Auburn offense and Jackson Arnold and those running backs. They're, especially with Eric Singleton kind of being more of like a slot guy for Auburn with Cam Coleman on the outside. I'm looking at a lot of RPOs, read options, power reads, mesh concepts, a lot of the dink and dunk, and I think they can pick apart this A&M defense. My only thing with that is, yes, I think this Auburn defense is good. The only difference, and I was looking at A&M's schedule, I'm like, okay, so I think they're going to have 3 losses, so they have to go 8-4, so who's going to be the 4th loss? And it's going to be Auburn. The only difference, I think, Mike Elko is a really good coach. Marcel Reed is a dual threat quarterback with experience. And the biggest thing is they have 2 damn good receivers. That is the thing that I think A&M has been missing the past couple of years, is good receivers. So I am going to pick A&M. I'm going to pick Auburn to cover. Obviously last year, A&M lost in like 4 overtime. It was like 43-41 where they dropped the 2-point conversion. A&M did, and Auburn won at home. Now with it being at home for A&M, I am going to pick A&M to win. I think it's going to be something like 20. I mean, it could be something like 23-22, 23-21, or a thing where it's Auburn has a chance, but like Auburn always does, they sell. And I think A&M wins with a walk-off field goal, 23-21. So I am going to pick A&M. So that brings us to a game that when I looked at this game, I'm like, this is a Friday game. This is so it's Arizona at Iowa State. And this is a game that like I've seen Arizona and Kansas State and all these teams in the Big 12 play on Fridays, and obviously I think TCU and Arizona State are playing tonight. But this is a game that like usually you'd be like, oh, it's a Friday night game, and everyone would be talking about it. But yeah, this game's at 7 p.m., 30 minutes before the 2 big games, so no one's talking about this game. But it is Arizona, who's undefeated, unranked though, going on the road versus Iowa State, who's undefeated and ranked. This will be the Big 12 opener for Arizona, and you're probably like, why? They just played Kansas State, and this is the same thing that happened with Arizona last year. That Kansas State game was not a conference game because they scheduled a home-and-home with Kansas State before Kansas State joined before they joined the Big 12. So it's not a conference game, which is unfortunate for Arizona because, I mean, you could have scheduled some FCS cream puff, and now you have to play Kansas State, who people thought was one of the best teams in the Big 12, and doesn't even count to your record. So Iowa State's favored by 4.5. I think Iowa State is better pretty much everywhere. Same thing kind of with this Tennessee-Mississippi State. I think they're just better everywhere. I think it will be close just because Noah Fafita. But I am going to pick Iowa State to win this game. I think this is going to be something like I don't know, like a 17-13 low scoring game where maybe it's 10-10 at halftime and maybe Arizona's leading in the fourth quarter 13-10 and then Arizona State scores, it's like a 20-13, 17-13 type game. So I'm going to take the under and I'm going to pick Iowa State to win, and I guess they wouldn't cover if they win by 4. And ooh, baby. This will take us to our last 2 games. This is the ones that you have all been waiting for. And I am going to put chapters at the bottom of this video so you guys can scroll to the games maybe you just want to see. I want to make sure I covered all the games I wanted to. Yes. Okay, so whoa, what do we want to start with? What do I want to start with? Okay, these teams are lower ranked. Let's start with this one. Alabama. That's not in the top 15. They actually were last week. They won and dropped out. Now they're at 17. Versus Georgia, who's undefeated, coming off that huge overtime win 2 weeks ago versus Tennessee. Both of these teams had a bye week before, which is awesome. Same thing with Penn State. They had a bye. Oregon played Oregon State last week. I'm glad these teams had a bye because it means they have 2 weeks to game plan for this game. And I don't know if you remember last year, I think Ohio State-Oregon was the best game of the year because I think it was the best game of the year because it was super tight, super competitive with all the lead changes. But if you're asking me what the best game, I guess it wasn't even the best game because that game Alabama-Georgia kind of sucked last year. But if you're talking to me about what I think is the best quarter of football, that fourth quarter game for Georgia where they came all the way back down 28-0 and they have the lead, and then one play later, Ryan Williams does full spin jitsu blade. This game was crazy last year, and the reason why I don't think it was game of the year is I think the defenses were so bad during this game, and the game kind of became sloppy enough where I was kind of just laughing. I was watching with my family. And we didn't watch the most of it because Ohio State was playing Michigan State on the road. And the game was a blowout, so we didn't even think about it. But then when that game ended, we got to watch the fourth quarter. And that was just phenomenal. The light shows that were going on just made the atmosphere so much better and then Chris Fowler, obviously. He elevates every game he does, especially Alabama-Georgia. And Georgia is favored by 2.5 at home. This is I'm pretty sure the first blackout since 2008 in between the hedges. I don't think this game is going to be as good as it was last year. I still think it's going to be a good game. In the preseason, I picked this game to be like 27-26, like an overtime where someone goes for 2 and doesn't get it, or Georgia goes for 2 and they get it. But I'm pretty sure I had who did I have winning? Oh my God, who did I have? I think I had Alabama winning this game in the preseason. Because I'm kind of done picking Georgia. Yes, I had Alabama winning this game, and then I think I did another prediction where. No, I didn't. Okay, so I had Alabama winning this game in the preseason. Now, and I've been back and forth. The last time this game was in Athens, Alabama whooped Georgia. Georgia is 1-9 in the past 10 versus Alabama, and we thought it was a Saban thing, but Alabama won last year. But I think that changes. Because I have the Bulldogs rolling the Tide in I think more of a defensive-ish game. I have Georgia winning something like 26-24, 26-23, something like that. I think this game is close. I think it's defensive. I think it's maybe a little sloppy. But I do have the Bulldogs getting a huge win. The first win since that only win in the national title in 2021. And I have the Dogs rolling, maybe in overtime, maybe not. But I am going to take, I think this sets up beautifully if you're betting money. And Joel Klatt said this really well. Georgia's only favored by 2.5, which means you can take Georgia to cover with a field goal, only a field goal, and you win. So if you want to get it at 2.5 before it changes, get that bet right now. And that will bring us to our last game, and this is Oregon on the road at Penn State. And this was also a super tough game for me to pick, just because this game defies all laws of physics. And what I mean by that is Penn State's at home. They're in a whiteout. People like the only thing that's tougher than Oregon's Autzen is like the whiteout. Or only thing that's like louder is the whiteout. Penn State's more veteran. They have the better defense. They have the better run game. They have a more veteran quarterback. They're higher ranked. They're my preseason national title pick. They're favored by 3.5 at home. It's just like the stars are aligning for James Franklin. But you know what they say? When the stars align and you look at the stars, it's too damn bright. And especially for anybody, especially James Franklin, the stars are too bright for him. I don't care. And this is kind of an emotional pick because last year I had a perfect playoff bracket. I predicted every game right except for Notre Dame versus Penn State. I filled out my bracket before even the bracket happened. I picked Penn State over Notre Dame in the semis, and Ohio State over Penn State. And everything was looking fine. Penn State was up by double digits, and they sold because Drew Aller and James Franklin are dog shit. They're ass. They're just like, I don't like in the preseason there were 3 teams that were like, well, these are some of the best teams because of how veteran they are. That was Penn State, Clemson, and LSU. Clemson is dog water. LSU could not. It looked like a good win, not anymore, and they have struggled on offense ever since. Really, they only put up 13 points on Florida's defense, and Penn State has been super lackluster, and they've looked the best out of all the other ones. So, I don't think Drew Aller. Here's the thing, which obviously the game plan is Oregon can't stop the run the ball. But I don't think that's what they're going to do. They finally have these transfer receivers. They want to get them touches. I think they're going to try to throw the ball better. Throw the ball more than they can. They think they're better at passing the ball than I think they are. I do think Oregon walks into the Happy Valley, and just like every other team, and this is one of the things where it's like with Kirby, it's like, yeah, he hasn't beat Alabama in a long time, but at least he's actually done it before, so I don't feel bad picking Kirby, or I don't feel bad Ohio State beating Ryan Day and Ohio State beating Michigan this year, which I am picking. I don't care. I'm going to pick Ohio State to beat Michigan this year. Call it right now. I'm not changing my pick. But because it's happened before, and James Franklin did beat Urban Meyer off of a blocked field goal, but that's it. They can't even beat Iowa when they're in the top. Iowa's terrible. When Iowa was ranked in the top 3, which if you don't remember, Iowa was the second ranked team in the country in 2021, and that team I think ended up being 8-4. Penn State still could not beat Iowa. So why the hell would I pick a team which Oregon, I think, has the better coach, better quarterback, better offensive coordinator? It's Jim Knowles, but my thing with Jim Knowles, we're oh, look what he did in the Rose Bowl last year against Will Stein. No. That was Ryan Day's defense. You want to see what completely Jim Knowles' defense was? That was the game in Autzen. The reason why Jim Knowles left is because he couldn't take criticism and wanted to run his own thing. It just happens that his own defense doesn't work very well versus teams like Oregon. So I think Oregon knows this. Yes, it's Dante Moore, but he started at UCLA. I think that will Oregon have to run the ball more just because of the crowd? Yes. But I do think Penn State has the lead for the entire game. And at the very end, Drew Aller throws the ball, and it's intercepted. Oregon maybe has a pick 6 or something late. Maybe not a pick 6. That's a little bit bold. But I am going to pick Oregon to win this game. I think Oregon's going to win something like a 31-24, 30-24, 30-27-ish type game. So I'm going to pick Oregon to win this game. So that is all the games. And then I want to get into an in-depth preview, and this will be its own segment posted tomorrow morning. So if you just want to watch that video will be posted tomorrow. But I wanted to cover Ohio State versus Washington. So 3:30 tomorrow, Ohio State is going to go on the road up to Seattle to play the Washington Huskies, who are undefeated, coming off of a huge win, blowout win over their rival Wazoo. This game was actually a 31-24 game into the fourth quarter. So the 59-24, don't let it deceive you. Ohio State has a 68.8% chance to win. They were favored by 7.5 a couple hours ago. They had a shot way up to 9.5, and now it actually went down to 8.5. So this spread is all over the place. Now the Buckeyes are favored by over a touchdown. The over-under is at 52.5. So they are kind of predicting like a 30-22, 29-22 type game. I would take Ohio State to cover, and I would take the over. Even if they don't cover, I think the over is gonna hit in this game. I will say I want to see a little bit more about how Ryan is going to call this game. He was super conservative against Texas. We'll see what the game plan is against Washington. But let's get into some of the statistics for this game. So the passing yards are almost identical for both of these quarterbacks, with Julian Sayin and DeMond Williams Jr. Actually, I'm going to jump over. No, let's do this view. All right, so 68.8% chance to win this game. Excuse me. 8.5, 52.5 is the total. And then let me see if I can zoom in a little bit. There we go. So if we're looking at passing yards, so Julian Sayin has one more passing yard than DeMond Williams Jr. He has 8 touchdowns with 3 picks, when Williams Jr. for Washington only has 6 touchdowns, but he has 0 interceptions. And actually, I know this is going to sound like a biased Ohio State fan. I think this might favor Ohio State, because DeMond Williams Jr. is still. Before I look stupid, what year is he? He's a sophomore. So I do think the interceptions might favor Julian Sayin a little bit, just because having to go through the interceptions. With DeMond Williams Jr. being a sophomore, he's a younger quarterback. Maybe not having to go through all of those interceptions, obviously, because last year he wasn't the full starter behind Will Rogers. I think he came in like halfway through the season last year. So I do think quarterback favors Julian Sayin. With DeMond Williams Jr., I am curious to see how Ohio State is going to spy him. They have spied Arvell versus Arch. We've seen them spy Caleb. So we're going to see kind of how they really want to spy this. I will say I would like Caleb back sometimes, just because at that Ohio game, which I was at, the long touchdown that was like Lorenzo was trying to tackle him 35 times and couldn't get him. So maybe I want to see the secondary with this offense kind of laid back, maybe 2 high or maybe 1 high, and have Jalen McClain in the box. But the problem with that is Jonah Coleman. He can stretch these linebackers out. The thing is, with these linebackers, I think Arvell spying and Sonny Styles on Jonah Coleman. Sonny Styles can hit hard. I would not be surprised if he forces a fumble or maybe even has like an interception in this game. But I am excited to see this rushing battle from Jonah Coleman. He statistically is the best running back in the Big Ten. Is actually the best running back in the Big Ten? Maybe on College Football 26, he's like a 93 overall. So I think he is still good, but statistically he's been doing very well. I will say he had 5 touchdowns, I think, versus UC Davis a couple weeks ago. But I looked at the drive charts, and they never pulled him out of the game. They were spamming him in the red zone. He never had like 50-yard touchdown runs. He had a kickoff return, or like a punt return, but it was like 9-yard run touchdown, 6-yard run touchdown. So it was never like big. It's just like in the red zone versus an FCS team. They're kind of just spamming him over and over again. But I still think he's very good. He has 347 on the ground throughout 3 games. Bo Jackson, throughout only 2 games, has 217 yards and 18 carries with a touchdown. If you've seen the news over the week, People are speculating that Bo Jackson might be hurt. He was seen in the interview in the background. He had like a light knee brace on. It was maybe waddling a little bit. It didn't look like he was like limping. It just kind of maybe looked a little weird, but it was also wrapped up. So we'll see. I have not heard any injuries from him. They are up practicing today in Washington, so he's with them. He's with the team. So we'll see when game time comes. And obviously that takes us to our receiver battles. This is Jeremiah Smith, Carnell Tate, Max Clare, Mylan Graham, Brandon Innes versus David Boston, and I'm sorry I don't remember the other receivers, but David Boston is a very good receiver. He has 3 touchdowns. Same with Jeremiah has 3 touchdowns. Jeremiah has more yards with more receptions. I think this is obviously. I think Jeremiah had legacy games versus Oregon last year and Tennessee last year, but I don't think Jeremiah's had 3 total touchdowns. I think he's had like 2 receiving touchdowns and 1 rushing touchdown, but he's never had 3 passing touchdowns. I think that might happen this game. I think Ohio State has a chance of maybe putting up 45 plus points on this defense. Maybe Washington puts up 25. Maybe they put 30 points. I don't think they will, but maybe they put high 20, 28 points on this defense. Ohio State might score 50, so who cares? And I want to see more from this defensive line. Edric has been on and off the field. Obviously had that injury in the offseason. But it's kind of led guys like Tyler Malone, especially Will Smith Jr. and Caden McDonald's. They look freaking phenomenal. I was so worried about guys like Will Smith Jr. and Caden McDonald. And it was kind of like Edric was like a one-man show. But now kind of they're looking good. So that depth is stacked up. And now when we're doing stuff, we're putting like Caden Curry on the nose tackle, Arvell Reese out left, and Bo Atkinson's Kenyatta out right. Kind of just like, so I want to see maybe they only rush 3 and spy 1 or spy 2, kind of something like that. But I am very excited to see. Oh, what did I just do? I accidentally clicked out of my thing. I am very excited to see this kind of battle between DeMont Williams Jr. On the ground game and our ground game versus their up front 7. I want to see how this game translates in the trenches, especially for Ohio State. I want to see Ohio State be able to run block better. So actually this says that Ohio State opened at 13.5. I don't think that was true. I think they only opened up at 10.5. But it's down to 8.5. These teams are both undefeated. And kind of a quick thing to wrap up this pick is with Washington is why the hell are they not ranked? Washington in the coaches poll weren't ranked, but they had like 25 votes. But in the AP poll, they didn't get a single vote. Not a single AP voter even put them in their top 25. Washington is like a top 20 team. They should be ranked. I think they will be ranked. I was super high on USC and Washington in the offseason. I had them finishing above Michigan and Illinois in the Big Ten. So I am very excited to see this game. A lot of people are picking Washington. I'm not, and that's going to come to my pick where I think you guys can all assume who I am picking to win this game. I am picking Ohio State to steamroll Washington. I think this is a game where Ohio State wants to come out and just swing, score 21 points in the first quarter. I could be very wrong, but this game reminds me of what Oregon was last year, and I think Ryan Day playing Oregon twice and having those 2 polar opposite results says, okay, we can do the game plan that we had against Oregon last year the first time or the second time. Let's do the second time. Let's throw it to Jeremiah Smith 15 times in this game and win by, I think this, the noise, I think, will be a factor, but it's like my thing is, the noise don't affect your eyes. If I see Jeremiah Smith wide-ass open down the sideline, I'm going to throw the ball, and who cares? They have 2 6'4" corners. One of them's hurt, maybe a game-time decision. But watch out for maybe a Carnell Tate legacy. I am excited for this game at 3:30. So that is all the games for today. I am going to pick Ohio State to win and cover and taking the over Washington. So I'm going to go over the bets for the rest of the games. Here we go. So let's go over to week 5. So there we go. So at number 10, I have Iowa State over Arizona. At number 9, I have Notre Dame over Arkansas. I have Indiana over Iowa. I have TCU over Arizona State, which is an upset. I have A&M over Auburn. I have Ohio State over Washington. I have USC over Illinois. LSU over Ole Miss, which is an upset. Georgia over Alabama. And Oregon over Penn State, which is an upset. So we're predicting 3 upsets this week. Throughout the past couple weeks, or really the whole season, there's been around 3 or 4 upsets every week. So kind of getting a couple in. Maybe we have a lot more. Maybe Auburn beats A&M and Arizona State beats TCU. Maybe Arkansas beats Notre Dame. So we'll see how this week goes. I'm hoping to have a week maybe just as good as last week is. I don't think so, just because of how many big games there are and it's harder to predict. But again, I have Iowa State, Notre Dame, Indiana, TCU, A&M, Ohio State, USC, LSU, Georgia, and Oregon. Those are my last-minute top 10 locks for Week 5. I hope you guys all had enjoyed watching this video. I got to go to Kroger and get some hooks for this flag because tape will not hold it up. But thank you so much for watching. We will see you guys all on Sunday to go over after the whistle to cover all these games. Tomorrow morning, I'm going to release the segment for that Ohio State Washington that we just covered. It's just going to be the segment of that. If you only want to see that, it's going to come out tomorrow. But yeah, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you guys on Sunday. Thank you.